Hey, it's syndicated radio talk show host, author, singer Al Cole, welcoming you to another edition of People of Distinction, the talk that gives an in-depth view of some of the most dynamic, intelligent, and successful people on the planet. I come from CBS Radio. My shows are nationally syndicated, and I've helped pave the way to treating women, guys too, with the dignity that they deserve. And I do that through my show, People of Distinction, aired on top networks, including, you could say, the toppest. Apple's iTunes radio network under their professional news talk division, featuring CBS shows, Fox News, NPR, BBC, C-SPAN as well. Best talk in the country around the world. Hey, that's on Apple's iTunes radio network under News Talk. And also check out my website, peopleofdistinction.org, and you'll see my alliances with people like Ariana Huffington, the wonderful founder of the Huffington Post, and a lot of other people that I'm in alignment with. Not only that, but you can check out the fact that I'm a national media consultant. Yeah, major media consultant is that. CBS Radio is major media, and I come from major media background, so I know how to help people to not only give great interviews through media, but also make a profit through media. Profit with anything that they are putting out there in terms of their professional outlay. Yeah, the services, the products that they have. I've taught hundreds how to make a profit at what they do. And so you can email me at alcoholic@gmail.com. You can learn more on that. And I got to explain that. Alcoholic@gmail.com. Yeah, well, alcoholic is what my CBS radio listeners came up with starting from day one. They've been saying, Al, we love what you're doing there, brother. In fact, we're hooked on it. We're alcoholics. Hey, we love that. I'm also a New York Times bestselling author with Chicken Soup for the Soul. Chicken Soup for the Soul is distributed by CBS's Simon & Schuster, so we keep it in the family that way. Coming up, a guy who's going to be good for your family. You have children? Most of us do. Most of us, when we get married, we have kids. And most people get married. So most people have kids in their lives at some point. Michael Rosenberg is our special guest right now. He's going to be talking about how to help children to understand music better with a great book that he has on Amazon right now. It's called The Little Lost Tune. Another story of Bantalot. Okay, so right from the start, I get it. Al, I like the title there, Little Lost Tune. In fact, I'm a musician myself. Good. Hey, most of us have dabbled in music, even if we're not professional musicians. But what is Bantalot? We don't know. Michael knows, though. So you got to stick around and hear what Michael says about Bantalot. Yeah. And even if you don't have children, you know somebody that does have children. And even if you don't have children, you don't know nobody that has children, you can still say, wow, I love music. I want to understand music even better from Michael's book, The Little Lost Tune. That's why he's here, to talk a little bit about the generosity of music. I put it that way because I'm a musician myself. And a songwriter, singer. I've traveled all around the country, U.S., in that capacity, parts of the world too. And I know that music really adds to our beautiful spirit. And that's generous stuff right there. And we don't have to be a child to know that. Everybody loves something about music. So Michael's going to be talking about it in really, really wonderful and outreaching ways about helping kids and even adults too to understand music a lot better. The Little Lost Tune, another story of Bantalot. And I want you to run to Amazon.com and order that book. And I will say he was brought to me by Parchment Global Publishing, one of the best in the publishing world. And if you want to move a book that you got out there, wow, they're the movers for you. ParchmentGlobalPublishing.com, that's where you want to go. Stick around here. We're going to talk to Michael Rosenberg. Michael, how are you today?
I'm pretty good, Al.
All right, we're going to talk about it here. I'm a musician, as I just said, so I love music. You love music. Children love music, all of that stuff. I'm assuming maybe you're a musician too. Tell us why you wrote the book, The Little Lost Tune, another story of Bantalot, and tell us particularly what is Bantalot?
Okay, it's a good question. And answering the first bit, yeah, I'm a kind of amateur musician. I play keyboard, I play ukulele, I like to sing, I like to entertain. That's not my business, but it's my hobby. So when I grew up in that environment, my dad was a musician, a classical pianist. I grew up with musical evenings every Sunday evening. So that was my background. But principally, I've been a businessman all my life. I've been involved in many areas. I've traveled the world, seen most countries, been to villages in South America, Africa, China, everywhere. Listened to music there. Listened to the way in which they present themselves. So music has always been in my blood. So what is Benderloch? Benderloch, by the way, is a village which some people may know is so high in the mountains of Kazakhstan that the people there think that they're the only people in the world because they were so remote. And why called Benderloch? Because these people have a very strange capability. These people who live there have the ability to make things bend. Why?
Wow.
Because it's a natural thing for them to do, and they don't think it's strange. So my characters, which run through the story of Benderloch, and there are two other books in that particular series, have grown up in that environment. They're adventurous. They like to explore, and what we find in The Little Lost Tune is the way in which they explore and discover the magic of music.
So these are the people there. All right, Kazakhstan. I'll tell you, get into Asia as well and Eastern Europe. This is really great stuff right from the start. We're talking about children. We're talking about music. We're talking about universal stuff. We love that on People of Distinction with Al Cole. And we're talking about The Little Lost Tune by Michael Rosenberg, our special guest, and it's available on Amazon. Let's get into it. Let's unpack the book a little bit more here. What are some of the main things that you want people to know now that we put it on the phraseology of music, and children particularly? Give us a few chapters here of what you really want people to know about your book.
Okay, so what I want people to know is that this is a book in a series of books which are designed to excite the imagination of kids and of children in many different ways. In the earlier editions, I take them on adventures where they discover all kinds of strange creatures and animals, and they discover, more importantly, what other people, how other people exist, bearing in mind that they lived such a unique and solitary life before. So on this particular journey, we find that whilst they're playing by the stream in the village, they suddenly see a strange sight. They don't know what it is. For the benefit of listeners, it is actually a musical note. It's floating through the air. And being kids, they run after it through the woods, and they hear a tinkling sound. And as they run through the woods, they find more of these notes. And we discovered that these are, as musicians will know, they are minims and crotchets and quavers, all of which are a complete mystery to them. And this is their voyage of discovery. So how did this happen? It happened because the musician in charge of the orchestra, who is a bear that comes from one of my previous books, is conducting. It's opened his music, starts to conduct, and unfortunately, the musical notes, which should have been stuck to the paper by the goblins and the elves who help him, they had not used the proper adhesive. So as he waved his baton and waved it in the air, the musical notes disappeared into the air, rushing through the forest.
Wow. A real great fantasy there. We like that. And with that fantasy, there is reality as well, isn't there, Michael? In terms of music is not just something that delights us through our ears. It can delight our entire body. And our body then can shoot it up to our mind. We can even think better. I've worked with many educational groups that teach children music, not necessarily just to teach them about music itself, but music is a discipline as well, and it can help kids educationally. And then it can help their spirit as well, that beautiful vibrational energy that we get up there into the spirit, and we can even think and feel better about life as well. Am I making some sense that way too, Michael?
Absolutely, I couldn't agree more. It's interesting that actually many kids who have an aptitude for music also have a mathematical mind, a very logical mind. It's quite interesting.
That's right. Do you ever get into that aspect with your book, The Little Lost Tune, some of the advantages to the mind as well as to just the listening enjoyment of music?
Well, it is, of course, designed to get the kids to understand that eventually these disparate notes floating through the forest have to come together to create something much more magical, which is, as you and I will know, the end result of a magical tune.
Now, Michael, I'm going to ask you if you know this name, and I would think that you do. Carol Channing.
Sure, absolutely.
Yeah, universal stuff there. Anybody around the world would know that name. Carol Channing. She, a wonderful lady who, even though she's a much different generation than I am, I had the pleasure of knowing her in her last days of life, well, last years of life. Maybe when she actually turned her in her late 80s. And she invited me, she and her husband back then, invited me to, when I was in Los Angeles for a stint, to their Palm Springs beautiful home. And she brought out some musical instruments and everything, knowing that I was a musician. And Carol knows a little bit about music as well, her husband at that time. We started talking a little bit about music. I played a little bit of my music as well. And she told me that she and her husband, who were both in their late 80s at that time, had gotten involved with some congressional bills to reintroduce music, particularly the arts in general, but music particularly, back into public school agenda. And so many public schools had dropped music and the arts from their agenda, thinking, well, it's unnecessary. But Carol and her husband went down to Washington, testified, and actually got a bill passed in public schools to bring back music, to bring back the arts in general. And for some of the reasons that you just mentioned, too, kids are more disciplined that way. They learn even mathematics better. It turned out to be a wonderful, wonderful adventure. And with two people in their 80s particularly doing that, and a big, big help out to our human family at that point. What would you think if you had to say to children right now and their parents about music in that same inspirational vein of why music should be in all of the public school systems for these kids at a very, very young age? Give it your best shot, Michael, there with inspiration.
I think that, and I'll use a good example. I have a grandson. He's now nearly 15, and from a very early age, I played music to him. I think he was probably 2 or 3 or whatever. Well, he's grown up to be a very bright kid. He plays the piano himself. He plays a bit guitar. He loves music, but more important, he academically is great. He's a rounded character. He's into sport. He's into everything. But his great love is music. And when I ask him, I said, for example, what do you do at school time? He says, well, at lunchtime, I go with some friends and we try and make music in the music room. We try and design our own music. And that, if you like, illustrates the power of music.
It really does. The power of music, hey, that's the power of the human spirit, people. And that's what we talk about on People of Distinction with Al Cole, especially when we have a wonderful gentleman from the UK to talk about it too, Michael Rosenberg, the author of just a fascinating book here, The Little Lost Tune, another story of Bent a Lot, and helping children to understand, and not just understand, but be inspired by music. Hey, we love that. And also their parents too. Go to michaelrosenberg.com, his website, and explore the wonderful work and will of Michael Rosenberg to help children. michaelrosenberg.com, and also order his book at Amazon. And one more time, he was brought to us by Parchment Global Publishing, one of the best in the publishing world. Reach them at parchmentglobalpublishing.com. Michael, we're going to give you the final minute here. Maybe even 2 minutes. Yeah, expand on anything else that you want to say on your wonderful book, The Little Lost Tune. Tell us more about it, whatever you want to say to end the show.
Okay. I will tell you something that may fascinate listeners. So we talked about The Little Lost Tune, another story of Benderlot. And I described Benderlot as this village high up in the mountains. Why Benderlot? How did I come up with that name? Well, the answer to that is that one of my very best friends is a character who will be pretty well known to a lot of people. It's a guy called Uri Geller, who claims to have the ability to bend metal just by his mind. He's a very spiritual person. I've known him for 30 years, and I've always felt that there was a story waiting to be told, that because he believes that we all have powers that none of us realize that we do have, whether they're powers to make music, whether they're powers to make things move, whether they're powers to be scientists. We have many powers which we're not using. So Benderlot simply is an expansion of an idea of a place where these people have amazing powers, which I'm pretty sure many people actually have but don't use. So the idea that we can create music and through that music have the power to make even better music, to make songs, to make symphonies. Imagine young Mozart. How old was he? He was a young guy and he died when he was, I think, 30 something.
Yeah.
And yet this young guy made amazing music. So there's a lesson for everyone.
Hey, and that's a lesson for you, my listening audience, on People of Distinction with Al Cole. And I'm going to really cap off the show right now with a couple of cents of my own to underscore the great sense of Michael Rosenberg, our special guest here today on People of Distinction. We all have gifts, people, and we all have gifts that involve something that involves love. We got to put that word in there, and I do that every single show. Throw in that L-O-V-E word, because that's what it's really all about in the end. Relating it back to music. I don't think that there's anybody who was ever born on the planet knowing about music that didn't love something about music. They all had maybe their favorite tune, something that they really loved. That doesn't mean you have to love everything about music that you hear, no. But music gets to that soul right away with something. And you can't say that about everything else. There are certain other things, but music is so direct, and you don't even need words. As many people have said, music is the universal language, along with sex. Okay. They're both universal. We know that. And love is really the buttress to both of them, because when we love something, now that changes all of the channels on the inside. It makes everything channel upward to the reason for our birth. And I will say this, children sometimes are much closer to that universality of love than adults are. Imagine when you were a baby and you came out, the first thing that you said to yourself was, wow, I'm here, I made it. I'm actually alive. And that baby within you, and we're all babies, hey, we're all born the same, had to look around and say, I love life. Thank you, life, for inviting me into this beautiful adventure, and I want to learn more, and I want to give as much as I can to love. Now, we know that children, hey, they're still there to some extent. They're running around, they're, shaking their bodies all over the place, and they're rolling in the grass, they're looking at the clouds, they're closer to nature. Let's get back to that child within us all, that baby, that innocence of love. And we can do that through music. We can do that through other ways too. But get back into, every once in a while, that beautiful innocence of love within. And nothing, I don't think, does it as immediately as music. And Michael knows that too, and that's why he wrote this wonderful book, The Little Lost Tune, Another Story of Bentalot. And I want you to order that at Amazon.com and visit Michael's website, michaelrosenberg.com as well. Thank you so much, Michael, for being my special guest here today on People of Distinction with Al Cole. We wish you all the very best with your book and with all of your life directions. Thank you so much, Michael.
My pleasure. Thank you, Al. Very good. Well done.
All right. Very good.